Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining in. I am Sonal Jain, your host, and I welcome you to a brand new episode of Gupshup with Pats. In today's episode, we have Mr. Maanas Lal, who is a writer, photographer, painter, and a public speaker with several accolades to his name. His work has been featured in many magazines and exhibitions and includes collectors like Baichung Bhatia, Radhir Singh Surjwala, Lord Karan Milmoria, and many more. His paintings even adorn the walls of ONGC headquarters. He has been awarded with Pride of Doon Award for his contribution in art, which was previously received by author Ruskin Bond and veteran actor Tom Alter. He has also been awarded with Uttrakhand Excellence Award for his multiple facets as an artist. So, presenting to you one of the most grounded person I know, and himself a face of Dehradun, Maanas Lal.
Yes, Sonal.
How are you, Maanas bhai?
I am doing well. Sorry, first of all, for all these technical glitches. I don't know what's going on today.
It's
But Zoom का दोष दे देते हैं आज, चलो थोड़ा सा.
So let's just dive into the episode and all. So as I know that your father is an IPS officer, as a popular culture, I know that in many houses with IAS and IPS and administrative officers, so children tend to grow in very surrounding with rules and regulations. So is it was same for you or different?
So not only is my father an IPS officer, my family has a tradition of public service. So my grandfather was in the Indian Postal Service. Many of my uncles joined one or the other civil services. But the fact is that my grandfather was an artist also. तो वो शेरो शायरी करते थे and मेरे सारे ताऊजी जो हैं वो शेरो शायरी करते हैं. My father is himself an artist, a painter. So apart from being civil servants, they always kept doing these things. So rules and regulations were never really a part of my life. There is a stereotype कि upbringing में अनुशासन होता है and काफी एक एक चीज पे ध्यान रखा जाता है. लेकिन in my case it was not true. In fact, I was rarely asked कि exams कैसे चल रहे हैं, marks कितने आने वाले हैं. The one question everybody in my family asked me was art कैसी चल रही है, which sport are you playing these days. So I have always been from a family, fortunately, where rules and regulations have stayed largely away from me. And obviously, I would like to consider myself as a naturally reasonably disciplined person as far as the basics in life are concerned. तो कोई खास जरूरत भी नहीं पड़ी शायद discipline करने की मुझे. So that also helps.
Oh, that's totally great. Like ऐसे हम लोग देखते नहीं कि ऐसा होता है. Like हमने हमेशा ऐसे probably हमने देखा भी और ऐसा सुना भी है कि पहले तो जैसे जहाँ पे जैसे administrative officers होते हैं वहाँ पे लोग ज्यादा surrounding उनकी थोड़ी tight रहती है. But as you are saying, that's a very good thing, I guess.
I think that all comes down to how my grandparents were. So since my grandparents had an attitude of a very liberal and open-minded upbringing, I think that is what has gone on to the future generations also.
Yeah.
So across the board, all my cousins also have never really faced rules and regulations. So ऐसा वाला ही चला है बस life में.
Oh, that's great. So, Maanas, what when you were in your childhood or in your teenage? So, what were your ambition? Like, what you wanted to be?
So, I initially started off wanting to become a sports person because I was very keen on sport, and for several years, you can understand that from what I'm wearing today. I'm wearing the Indian team's memorabilia. But anyway, so I used to play cricket as a kid. And काफी सीरियस कोचिंग वगैरह का सिलसिला चलता था. मैं एक क्लब को रिप्रेजेंट करता था. And I also used to play other sports. So there was this football match in which I broke my thumb.
Oh.
And बहुत बुरी तरह आए, मतलब it was fractured pretty badly. It was a bad fracture. और मैं जब अपना ट्रीटमेंट कराने गया तो वहां पर एक बड़े impressive, handsome orthopedic surgeon थे जिनका नाम था Dr. God. And he fixed my finger. And in about 30 days I was fine. I was so mesmerized by the presence of that man that बचपन में मैंने सोचा था कि मैं बड़ा होकर orthopedic surgeon बनूंगा. So that was the first beginning dream. So I thought, okay, fine, orthopedic surgery is where I'll go. That is perhaps one of the reasons I ended up taking physics, chemistry, maths and bio in 10+2. So I had that PCMB वाला combination जिसे सब डरते हैं. तो खैर वो combination था मेरे पास. And incredibly post my school, I got into a law college, an engineering college, and a medical college. So it became a very difficult choice also eventually, because I was pretty undecided till that time. Ultimately, I went in for engineering. I did software engineering, and wo bhi, because of these three, I found that for me the right option. Lekin eventually, what caught on with me was the fact that I loved photography, I loved painting. And I started getting a lot of work, a lot of orders while I was working for Infosys from people I knew. And जब ये सब होने लगा, उसके बाद मुझे लगा that if this is my true calling and I'm, it's calling me back to Dehradun, the place where I want to stay. So I decided to then take it on. And I also thought that if it doesn't work, it doesn't, but at least I'll be happy. Fortunately, things have kind of worked out. So you cannot really say that मेरा artist बनने का बचपन से dream था. सच्ची बात तो ये है कि artist बनना has happened much later when I found the love for these things. Initially, I was perhaps going to become a sports person and then an orthopedic surgeon. So that is how interesting it was.
That's really cool. So like as you said, you were in forces. So what was like everyone has that one trigger. You came into the creative arts, like you have a whole chain, like career change. So what was that one trigger? Like you thought, okay, I have to go in this thing.
Into the arts. Well, while at Infosys, also I used to be very attracted to things like game programming and graphics and other things, because visual arts has always been my area of fascination. So even while working in Infosys, that was the area of work I wanted to focus on.
Yeah.
So that was always building somewhere in the back of my mind, the want for becoming an artist. But the fact that I actually took it up has actually to do with the trip which I took with my parents to New Zealand. So we were in New Zealand, and my mother was very happy that I am in this cushy corporate job. So there was this one evening when I got an opportunity to go out with just my dad for something. And मैंने सोचा कि यही चांस है, बस अब बोलना पड़ेगा कि दिल नहीं लग रहा और अपना काम करने का मन है. So I decided to tell him. Fortunately, the fact that he's an artist, he took it very well and he understood what I'm trying to say. So he encouraged me to, quit the job. My mom was not told till a little while later, but when she came to know that I'm planning this, she was pretty scared, because obviously there is this entire notion of job security and placement and a good salary packet which one gets in corporate jobs. तो वो सारी चीजें give up करके आकर एक quote unquote unstable profession में आना was a difficult call for her, at least. लेकिन I was pretty convinced that it's going to work. So I think that one trigger moment was that trip, because travel also has been one of those things in my life which I can't do without. And कई बार travel करते हुए inspiration मिलता है. तो Queenstown was the city, और मुझे याद है वहाँ पर there is this mountain range called the Remarkables. And I was just looking at that mountain range late in the evening and thinking about my future. And I felt like I will be able to visit such places so infrequently if I continue with the job I'm currently in. And I want to live life on my terms. So that is perhaps the one moment I can recall which prompted me to, take this conversation forward.
Oh, that's truly great, Like, though, as you so said, you are also doing the visual arts, and I have read somewhere that you have, made your own technique of digital art. So tell us about that. What is that all about?
So I was fortunate in the sense that I did software engineering, and then I also went for training to the Narayan Murthy Center of Technology in Mysore. And how that helped me was that I got a good hold on graphics. I used to understand the visual medium as represented in computing better. So what I did was I married my talent for painting with the knowledge of graphics which I had.
Okay.
So I created a different style of work in which I started building paintings into digital art pieces. That was something new. And actually that is what helped me establish a niche of my own in the art world. So that is where things actually began to prosper. I had been working on things for quite a few years, but this was that one eureka moment. Ye ho gaya now. This is something I have landed upon. And that is how luckily the collectors and other artists also saw it. So thankfully, the jigsaw puzzle kind of fell in place. because it doesn't often happen. So I consider myself lucky that it happened.
So what, like, what's it's all about? Means what you do, right, out of that, like how it
All
works.
right. So uh, the medium I initially started painting with was acrylic. So what I used to do was that I used to create acrylic bases / acrylic paintings, and I used to create. I used to scan these to high resolution files, and then I used to work on them digitally. So
Okay.
one base used to give me multiple artworks, and how the digital art world works is that there is one primary print of the digital work, which is sold as the original, and then subsequently, much like photographs, you sell prints.
Okay.
So that is how I began my journey in fine art. And digital fine art is a very limited world just now. It's a very small number of artists and a very small number of collectors who have been taking this medium forward. So I've been fortunate that I've been able to break into that limited number of people, because it's always good to start early.
Yeah.
Because if you are, one of the beginners in some field, then you keep taking the gains which come with it for everybody else. So it's a process of mutual growth, and I've been very fortunate that I've been surrounded by good people who have helped me take this journey forward. So I must say that it's a lot to do with the people around me also.
Yeah. So as your father is also an artist, so what is that like? How was his role? Like, what was his role in your life as an artist? Like, when you both collaborated for the first time, what was the experience?
Maybe I think when we must have collaborated for the first time, it must have been in drawing a cartoon when I was in class 2 or 3. But as a serious collaboration, in terms of professional collaboration, we always have a lot of differences, because he's a very different kind of artist. So his work is primarily in oil and acrylic, and he does realism. I am into abstracts. So when we do collaborate, there is a lot of confusion. There are a lot of fights, but often we come up with something which is interesting and new. और यही कोशिश होती है that we get the best out of this, because otherwise we have an equation where we hardly ever have any disagreements. So perhaps art is that one place where our relationship becomes stronger, because मुझे लगता है that किसी भी relationship को strong होने के लिए थोड़ी बहुत disagreement जरूरी है. Unless you fight through some disagreements, it doesn't really strengthen your relationship. So I think the fact that we are able to collaborate in art and take on projects. For instance, I would have been hesitant in taking on projects of pure realism, and I'm sure he would have been hesitant in taking on projects of pure abstract work had we not had each other as partners. So fortunately, my strengths are in some ways his weaknesses, and his strengths are in some ways my weaknesses. So I can't really say he taught me anything directly, but definitely he is the inspiration for a lot of the work I do.
Okay, so that's if you get any support from your known people, give you an impression ki you have someone to take care of. Like if you do any mistakes or something like that, you have someone to hold your hand.
Absolutely, bilkul.
So you also know that your grandparents were also in art. So how has generation flow from there?
It's very interesting. My grandfather was an Urdu poet.
Okay.
And उनकी काफी उनका नाम जो था तालिब, उनका तखल्लुस था, एंड काफी वेल नोन थे वो उर्दू के सर्कल्स में. तो जो बड़े बड़े शायर थे उस जमाने के, वो घर पे आके रुका करते थे. एंड आई जस्ट हियर दीज टेल्स ऑफ जोश साहब एंड कैफी साहब एंड ऑल दीज पीपल बीइंग देयर एंड दोस कन्वर्सेशंस, एंड आई कीप वंडरिंग कि क्या समा होता होगा, क्या माहौल होता होगा. आई कैन ओनली एनवी देम, बिकॉज दैट आर्ट is something else and those people were something else. तो वो जमाना था जब मुशायरे ऑर्गेनाइज कराते थे मेरे ग्रैंडफादर. सो दैट वाज हिज कंट्रीब्यूशन इन टर्म्स ऑफ आर्ट, बिकॉज वो मुशायरे ऑर्गेनाइज कराते थे, खुद शेर व शायरी करते थे. और अगर कोई अच्छा मुशायरा हो रहा होता है, जो माहौल बनता है और उसका जो इम्पैक्ट होता है, लोग बात करते हैं, इट क्रिएट्स अ रेवोल्यूशन. तो वो कमाल हुआ करता था. एंड देन ही पास्ड ऑन द बेटन टू माय अंकल्स who took on Urdu poetry. So my father never really became an Urdu poet. Instead, he became a painter.
Okay.
And singing का एक common thread सब में चला. तो सब लोग गाना गाते हैं, और कुछ लोग ज्यादा अच्छा गाते हैं, कुछ लोग उतना अच्छा नहीं गाते, लेकिन गाते सब हैं. So it's when we get together and there is a Lal gathering, it's a crazy situation. बहुत जबरदस्त पागलपन चलता है, क्योंकि होना भी चाहिए. मुझे लगता है कि थोड़ा बहुत पागलपन जिंदगी में जरूरी है. And so my grandmother on the other hand, was a writer in Hindi.
Okay.
तो उनके कई सारे आर्टिकल्स वगैरह छपे इन prominent newspapers and magazines, and she used to write beautifully, and तो दोनों तरफ से इंस्पिरेशन की कोई कमी नहीं थी. And also in the case of my mother's family, my grandmother, maternal grandmother, used to sing very well, and while both my maternal grandfather and grandmother were doctors and had very little time, to take care of the family or to spend otherwise, but they were still able to instill these artistic values in their children. So I was fortunate that both my parents had an inherent idea of what it is like to be an artist, and they had respect for music and all other forms of fine art. So that helped.
Yeah, like as you're telling that you have this generational type of each generation had someone. So I guess the whole your how in your house the whole surrounding will be full of creativity. I guess so.
I don't know. I mean, if you look at the wall behind me, I have painted that also, and there is something going wrong there. So I'm thinking of changing it up. But वो चारों तरफ ये सब चलता रहता है. That's true. दिमाग बहुत खुराफाती हो गया है. I often feel like इतना खुराफाती नहीं होना चाहिए. लेकिन all the time, you are thinking about what to create next and where you went wrong in your previous work and so on. It's a process of learning, and it's a wonderful feeling, honestly, once you get into it. तो मजा जो है वो just keeps on building. And if you have people around you जो इस चीज को appreciate कर सके, या more importantly, in fact, criticize कर सके, तो वो बहुत जरूरी होता है. क्योंकि तारीफ करने वाले तो बहुत मिलते हैं, लेकिन क्रिटिक की वैल्यू जो है वो बहुत जरूरी है. और घर पे ही क्रिटिक हो तो फिर तो बहुत ही खुशी की बात है.
I can totally feel you. So coming to the next question. So लोग अक्सर ऐसे होता है ना कि पूरे अपने लाइफ में एक ही फील्ड में लोग चलते हैं, है ना, कि एक फील्ड या फिर ऐसे, बट यू हैव चोजन डिफरेंट फील्ड्स and you are still continuing and excelling in that. So like how did you choose कि मुझे इन सब में ही जाना है?
Okay, so that is interesting. So I started off in school with photography, and my first photography exhibition was when I was in class 9. So professionally, the first work I really put out was photography, and I did not have enough confidence in my painting till a much later stage in life. So you can just kind of say that my fine art journey, the foundation, started with, in fact, fine art photography.
Okay.
Then I started taking workshops for students. So that is how teaching came into the picture, which I continue to do at various institutions and in schools and colleges across the country. So that is primarily the basis of where my journey as a fine art professional began. But then once I got into abstract painting, that is where I truly found my calling. And that again has to do with travel. So my concept of painting was largely realistic because that is what I had seen around me.
Yeah.
जैसा दिख रहा है वैसा बनाओ, कितना असली लग रहा है. Actually, often जब लोग तारीफ करते हैं किसी पेंटिंग की तो कहते हैं कितना देखने में ऐसा लग रहा है असलियत में हो. That is considered praise. But I have often felt like paintings should not resemble photographs. Paintings should tell their own story. So when I started traveling and I saw the amount of abstract work which is there in different parts of the world, that gave me inspiration to come back to painting and start a style of my own. So that is where then painting came in. The third part of it was digital work. That came in obviously from my software background. Once I had done my work in Infosys and understood graphics and all better, I realized that I can marry these disciplines and create something out of it. So fortunately, जो मेरे पिछले 2 careers थे, उनका जो natural byproduct था वो तीसरा वाला था.
Okay.
And in the case of music, where I got lucky was that one of my friends actually suggested to me randomly कि यार तुम्हारी आवाज अच्छी है. गाया मैं हमेशा से करता था, but I never thought somebody will come up with an offer कि so please sing for us or please sing something for my channel. And that is where it began. So again, I said I've been lucky that I've had wonderful people around me जिन्होंने मुझे promote करने की पूरी कोशिश करी है. तो music I owe to that person, and writing is I think the biggest find of my life. That happened because in one of my photography exhibitions, there is a newspaper here which is published out of 3 or 4 centers called the Himachal Times.
Okay.
The owners of the Himachal Times came over and they had read a couple of my pieces. I used to write very infrequently for some publications, and I had written long back for TOI and 1 or 2 other newspapers also. But they were articles which were very few and far between. उन्होंने पढ़े हुए थे तो उन्होंने कहा, why don't you start writing a weekly column for us? So I found it a little weird because I had never really thought of this happening in my life. But okay, I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And now we are talking 5 years later, and that column is still going. And apart from that, 2 other columns have started, and there are 2 or 3 books on the anvil. So I must say that writing also found me in a way, and I find myself very lucky that it did. Uh, Another wonderful thing which happened in the meantime is that my dad became an author.
Yeah.
तो उनकी जर्नी की वजह से भी मेरी जर्नी काफी आगे बढ़ी. अब मैं उनके साथ जो co-author कर रहा हूँ books, I've been very fortunate to find publishers like Bloomsbury and Home and so quickly. I mean, it doesn't happen usually that you land big publishers initially, but it's a matter of a lot of good luck and I think being at the right place at the right time, and also of course some talent. I should not take away all the credit. मेहनत भी है इसमें कोई doubt नहीं है. But I'm glad that all these things happened. So that is how all these careers took place, and why I'm able to take all of them forward is because I see them as mutually beneficial. एक career से दूसरे को फायदा ही होता है. My art inspires me in my painting inspires me in my writing. My writing inspires me in my photography, and so on and so forth. It just keeps the ball rolling. So if I leave one of these, मुझे तो ऐसे लगता है कि मेरी जर्नी ही रुक जाएगी as an artist. तो कंपल्शन भी है, करना ही पड़ेगा ये तो.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. और वो बहुत अच्छी बात है मानस जी, पता है, क्योंकि मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि अगर चीजें होती रहती है ना, मतलब इफ इट कंटिन्यूज ना, तो आपको यू हैव दैट थिंग कि नहीं चलो, इफ यू आर बोर्ड फ्रॉम वन थिंग तो यू हैव समथिंग अदर कि हाँ चलो है कुछ वो कर लेते हैं, है ना. सो
एब्सोल्युटली. एंड एक्चुअली इफ आई मे ऐड टू दैट, कई बार ऐसा होता है that you are not feeling up to the mark in something. जैसे for instance, there are days when you cannot write, but there are days when you don't sing well, and so you have something else to turn to.
That's what I'm telling.
There's a void which you can fill. Yeah, that's a good thing.
So I've also read somewhere that your painting has been taken by ONGC headquarters. So like how that happened?
Oh, that is something which actually happened because of one of my exhibitions. So some senior officials from the ONGC were there at the exhibition. They picked up some works from there. And then beyond that, the Raj Bhavan, actually, the governor himself had inaugurated that exhibition, the governor of Uttrakhand. So he picked up some work for the Raj Bhavan. And then subsequently, a lot of other government organizations and private organizations picked up my work. An entrepreneur from London, Lord Billy Moria, as he is known, Lord because he is a member of the House of Lords, a member of Parliament in UK. He became one of my collectors. So these people came to my exhibitions, they liked my work, picked it up, and well, fortunately, it sounds good enough to put on a CV. So that's why you have read it. But yeah, all this happened quite organically. And since it was a new form of art, I think that is why people were very intrigued.
Yeah.
In particular, the ONGC. And ONGC, the Tel Bhavan building is an iconic building. So for an artwork to be there is a matter of great honor. The same is the case with the Raj Bhavan here. And I feel so fortunate that not only is my work there in the Raj Bhavan here, but my dad's work is also there. So we share that space in a way. There are multiple artworks from the same family in the Raj Bhavan here and in UP and in MP and a couple of others in Rajasthan. So it has been a matter of a lot of pride for us.
Yeah. So that's totally great. So as you mentioned that you travel a lot, you know. So can you share an experience that left a mark on your life like that?
Oh dear, too many to count, to be honest. But let me think about it. I'll pull out a recent one. So in 2019, which was my last trip before the world effectively shut down, I had the unique opportunity of taking a trip to Europe with two of my closest friends. That rarely happens for people, and luckily we were able to make it work. So I was in Amsterdam, and there is this museum called the Rijks Museum. It's a very well-known museum which has primarily works by Rembrandt and other Dutch artists. But वहाँ पर एक combined exhibition चल रही थी of a Spanish artist called Velázquez and Rembrandt. So I had pre-booked that exhibition because I expected it to be good. But what happened with us was that we went in around lunchtime, and till the alarm was ringing for the last seconds to exit the museum late in the evening, we just kept admiring that set of paintings. It was so incredible, and there is a feeling of inadequacy कि हमने जिंदगी में हासिल ही क्या किया है. So that kind of pressed the reset button and sent me back to the place where I initially began. Because there is always a good thing about being new in something. When you start off, there is a different kind of zeal, there is a different kind of enthusiasm. तो ऐसा लगने लगता है थोड़े टाइम बाद कि आप जर्नी में काफी आगे आ गए हैं, तो यू फील अ वेट ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. बट वहां जाकर मुझे ऐसा लगा कि मुझे तो कुछ आता ही नहीं है. So I'm back to ground zero again, and I'm rebuilding once more. So I think the work of other artists, incredible work of other artists, has been one of those things in travel which has, had a very, very deep impact on me. And another incident I recall, if I may talk about it, is on a trip to Italy, which I had taken with my dad. And my dad is my travel companion.
Okay.
तो हम लोग अक्सर साथ में ट्रैवल करते हैं. तो हम लोग गए थे to Venice, and Venice में it was late in the evening. We decided to deboard the ferry because Venice is obviously a place जहाँ पर सिर्फ canals है, तो वहाँ there is no road transport. We got off at a point which is absolutely unknown. क्योंकि टूरिस्ट एरिया तो सब देखते हैं. हमने ये सोचा कि हम पैदल घूमते हैं इन those areas जो कोई जानता नहीं. So the city was absolutely empty. It was a beautiful moonlit night. I have a lot of pictures of that evening, and we saw Venice at its absolute best without any people, just the raw form of that incredible city, the human achievement. और जब हम लोग सेंट्रल स्क्वायर पे पहुंचे, the moment I entered, there was this huge cello orchestra playing My Heart Will Go On.
Okay.
And that moment just gave me goosebumps because it was the perfect finale. So for the first time in my life, and I'm not much of a believer in anything, not God or any religion or anything for that matter, but in that moment I felt like this was destined to happen. यहाँ पहुंचे और ये हुआ. So that was another moment which kind of helped me realize that okay, music is going to be this prominent finale in my life, and I have to stick to these things in life. Because actually there's one more thing I just recalled, Sonal, since you spoke about traveling. ताजमहल जब मैं पहली बार देखने जा रहा था, I was a kid, and मुझे my parents told me कि नहीं ज्यादा expectations मत रखना. I don't know why they said that, but मैंने अपने दिमाग में ये कर लिया था कि ठीक है, I'll keep my expectations low and देखेंगे क्या होता है. But the moment you see that framed corridor and you see the Taj for the first time, it is such a magnificent sight. It just sweeps you off your feet. तो आई डोंट नो व्हाई दे सेड एक्सपेक्टेशंस कम रखना, लेकिन मैं तो अब सबसे कहता हूँ एक्सपेक्टेशंस कम रखना, ताकि वो जब जाए तो मेरे जैसा एक्सपीरियंस हो जाए, बिल्कुल ही हो जुड़ जाए. सो आई जस्ट होप पीपल ट्रैवल एंड सी ब्यूटीफुल एंड आर्टिस्टिक थिंग्स इन लाइफ.
Totally. So we're coming to the next thing. Ki Labasna and NPA is like one of the most prestigious institution where public policy and public administrations and all. So we have read that you have been brought there to give the workshops and all. So how was the experience to give the workshop to the future administrators and all?
So it's a wonderful experience. The best part about both Labasna and NPA is that you have students who are from different states, with different thought processes, and you know that they are in some way or the other going to shape the India of the future. So there is this responsibility on your shoulders, and you also know that the class is going to be a reasonably bright class. So it's very interesting to talk about soft skills and art appreciation with these students, because all of them come from very different perspectives, and it's a very mature class as opposed to a lot of colleges and schools. So when you talk to them, you realize that you are not in a position to really change perceptions. All you can do is perhaps add something. So I approach those workshops very differently. When I am talking to school students or when I'm talking to even college students, I would usually take the approach of helping them learn new things and perhaps change their technique in certain cases. But in the case of civil servants, whether it is at Labasna or NPA, I know that what I need to do is perhaps add on to their existing skills, because they have a preconceived and a pretty well set notion of life already. So I just try my best to help in whatever way I can in their journey. And I do believe that soft skills are extremely important for civil servants, because how you communicate and how you connect with other people, how sensitive you are, actually does end up dictating how good you are as an administrator. So I see this as a very important part of that set of workshops which they have. So yes, I have been fortunate enough to hold workshops, and in fact, in Hyderabad, apart from the workshop, the good part is that every time you go there, you can also treat yourself to some biryani.
Yeah, बिल्कुल.
So very close to NPA is the biryani center. I mean, all of them. There are so many in Hyderabad. So that is also a part of my travel. So apart from the experience of actually, discussing policy, and I don't really get into policy much. I talk about my field because policy is not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is soft skills. But when I do listen to them or interact with them, it's very gratifying. And I'm also very happy that a lot of them keep in touch. So I keep hearing from some of my, if I may call them students, basically they are called officer trainees. So I keep hearing from some of the officer trainees every now and then. And many of them have taken this love for photography, which started during those workshops, forward. So there are a couple of people, one posted in Madhya Pradesh, one posted in Chennai. I know these people who are now also running photography pages apart from doing their administrative work. So they have found this additional dimension in their life, and I am happy to have contributed in some way to that.
बिल्कुल मानस भाई, मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है कि if you have additional thing apart from your academics or like your main thing to of income, so that's make life very easy कहीं ना कहीं. और वो उससे ना आपको मतलब it's a stress buster type of thing, I guess.
True.
Yeah. So, as you're here, how can we not talk about your book, upcoming book, Kanpur and Purno? So, can you just brief us about that?
I was very young when my dad was posted to Kanpur, and it was 2.5 years after the demolition of the Babri Masjid. So it was a very difficult time in the history of UP, particularly the communal history of Uttar Pradesh. And the policing at that time was extremely difficult. So I did not see him for several nights. He was trying to control the situation in the city. There was a lot of rioting. A major politician was assassinated during that time. And we were just onlookers who were very scared, and we didn't know what to do. And we were just hoping for the best. And we saw extremely difficult times. So this book is written from two perspectives. One is the perspective of the cop, and the other is the perspective of the cop's family. So how both cope with a situation like that. And of course, the third perspective is the perspective of the criminals. So what they were doing during that phase of time. So it was such an interesting series of events which took place, and how a particular murder was given a communal angle, and how there was a deliberate attempt to make communities fight with each other, and how it was stopped, and how the bloodbath came to an end. All that is what has been described in the book. And I must say that this is the flip side of, being the son of a police officer. You see things in life which a lot of people never see, and sometimes they are not pretty. So, seeing those, even now when I think of those situations, it does make me feel scared, even in retrospect. So while you were in the heat of the moment, maybe because of the tunnel vision and being there, you're not so scared. But when you look back on what could have happened, things look extremely scary. So, yeah, I wanted the audience to also understand what we went through, and also to, take on the thrill of UP of those times, because that was a very different landscape. India completely changed after those years. 1991, the economy opened up. And in 1992, there was the Babri Masjid incident. And then subsequently, one after the other, major events kept happening. And of course, the late Mr. Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated during the same time, around the same time. So all this changed the country forever. And how this had an effect on the ground in all cities across the country, and in particular Kanpur and UP, is what we have spoken about in the book, because there is so much which happened in a short phase of time. And I think these periods in history need to be documented from all perspectives.
Okay, that's like, I'll truly read that. Okay, like, sounds interesting.
Yeah, please do. And also, I must say that it's primarily a thriller, so much like the Barabanki Narcos, which was my dad's first book, which thrills and now is being adapted into a web series. The Kanpur Inferno is also a very thrilling book, and I am pretty certain that it will also be eventually taken up for visual adaptation. So let's see how that happens, because I must also mention here that my literary agents, the book bakers, have been a very important part of this journey. So I have been brainstorming with them, and they have often given me the go ahead for a lot of ideas. Because कई बार ऐसा होता है that there are ideas in the mind and you're not sure if this will translate into a good book. So you need somebody around. And as I said, लोग होते हैं कुछ जो कहते रहते हैं नहीं नहीं होगा ये भी चलेगा काम करेगा. So then Sohail from the Book Bakers is one of those people who keeps me focused, and he's like, "nahi, nahi, this idea is strong and go for it." So yeah, that's how things work.
That's really nice. That's really nice. So, like, there's a question that I really wanted to ask you. Okay, so, like, does art comes with modesty? Like, as I know you, you are a very liberal and very grounded type of person. So, does art has any effect on that?
Sonal, I'd be lying if I said yes, because I have met a lot of artists who are very grumpy and not necessarily modest. So modesty is something which is not shared by everyone. I think modesty has little to do with the profession and has a lot to do with the person. You can find modest people in a lot of fields, and you can find immodest people also in the same fields. So maybe I have seen how my family has functioned all these years, and in particular, my uncles and my father, and all these people, in spite of having achieved a substantial amount in life. In fact, my mother is one of those prime examples who I consider extremely modest, who tries to undermine every achievement she has ever, come across. She is by far the most educated person in this family. So she has a master's degree in law, she has a master's degree in political science, but she is willing to let the two of us say so much more and have our day in the sun. So I am very grateful to her for being so modest and kind of paving that road for me to follow. So it is a byproduct of the people around me again. I don't think I can take much credit for it, but I think modesty does help you go a long way in life. And for instance, one of the reasons I'm sure we are talking on this podcast is because of the way we connected. Because I'm pretty certain, having spoken to you, that you are a modest person yourself. So you always find the right kind of people if you operate with modesty. That's how I feel. So it's important to remain modest in this world, which is already full of a lot of pompous people. तब अकड़ का फायदा भी क्या है वैसे भी, और अकड़ने की वजह भी क्या है, मैं तो ये भी नहीं समझता. I often don't understand, irrespective of what you do. अकड़ने की वजह क्या है, मैं तो अक्सर ये सोचता हूँ. तो मॉडेस्ट होना तो इज एसेंशियल, उसके बिना कैसे काम चलेगा. एंड ग्लैड यू थिंक ऑफ मी एज मॉडेस्ट, क्योंकि कुछ मेरे दोस्त जो हैं वो तो मुझे कहते रहते हैं कि अपनी बहुत तारीफ करते हो तुम. तो ग्लैड यू थिंक ऑफ मी एज मॉडेस्ट.
मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि अगर आपने कुछ किया है तो अपनी खुद की तारीफ करनी चाहिए, थोड़ी तो करनी चाहिए. खुद में कॉन्फिडेंस रहता है ना कि चलो मैंने कुछ नहीं किया, तो मतलब ज्यादा कुछ नहीं किया पर कुछ तो किया है. Like I think like that.
Maybe you're right. My mom also keeps telling me this actually, कि कुछ तो अपनी तारीफ करो. मतलब कुछ किया है तो कहो किया है. ये क्या मतलब है कि हर चीज में तुम नहीं मैंने कुछ नहीं किया, मेरे आसपास के लोगों ने सब कुछ किया है, हर चीज का तुम ये जवाब दे देते हो. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like getting anywhere has to do with a lot of circumstances around you. It's not just an individual effort. It can never be. There are a lot of things which come into play. तो जो लोग अपने आप को सब कुछ समझने लगते हैं, I think they lose out a lot in life.
Yeah, totally. Like where you are, like in your life, anyone, like I'm talking in general, but कि आपको आपके लाइफ में आपके दोस्त कैसे हैं, आपके सराउंडिंग कैसी है, I think that, और आपकी सिचुएशन कैसी, that makes a lot of difference, I guess.
Absolutely, बिल्कुल. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So okay, so that's all for the talking session, Bhaiya. So we'll just get into the short section. Okay. For the short section, we have a rapid fire type of round, but it's not totally rapid fire. Okay, it's just like you have to give the book recommendations. Okay, for the following situation. Okay. So, okay, shall we start?
Please.
Yeah. So, okay, let's start with when someone is starting with the books, like reading books, one fictional and one non-fiction.
Non-fiction, I would recommend the Jim Corbett Omnibus, because that's how I started. And fiction, difficult. I would recommend Little Women by Louisa May Alcott.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good book. So second one is ki a lover of sports. Like, who is a lover of sports?
Tough question. because I've read a lot of books related to sports. But Out of the Box by Harsha Bhogle is a book I think everybody would love.
Okay.
Out of the Box is the name of the book. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, when they are feeling low.
Interesting. For some reason, there's this book called Heroines by Ira Mukhoti, which was written for Aleph, and that is the book which makes me feel good about the women in Indian history. So maybe if they want to take some inspiration and feel upbeat about how women in particular tackled adversity, I think that is a good book.
Okay, that's great. When they are going through a breakup.
Tough question. What was I reading when I had my breakup? Let me think. I think I was reading something like John Key's India. So don't read that because I went deeper into the pit. Maybe The King of Bollywood. I think that's a good book. The one written on Shah Rukh Khan. I think it helps you build through a different kind of romance.
Okay. When someone when someone reaches a point where he or she has done everything in life.
Tough question. I haven't really reached that point, so I can't answer. But maybe I'll recommend something. It's called I think it's called Creating Minds. The book. It talks about all these people who have achieved so much in life and who have been creative in different fields. So you'll take inspiration from them and you'll feel like abhi maine kuch nahi kiya hai, so that you can again take the journey on from the beginning.
Okay. So the last one is when they are going through a rough time in relationship, they are in the relationship but they are going through something like they have to come up with that.
The Fault in Our Stars, I think, is a book they should read. John Green.
Totally agree. So then, thank you, Maanas bhai. That was our second section, the short section. So, you can tag a person like whom you think they can come into this podcast.
Oh, you want me to plug somebody into this podcast? Who do you think? Well, actually, let me recommend one of my uncles. His name is Ashok Lal, and he's a playwright and a theatre person and a wonderful speaker. So I'm sure he'll love being here.
Okay. As you are here, how can we not tell you to sing? Okay, so can you sing us? What is your favorite one?
Favorite तो बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाएगा, but which singer is the one you'd like to listen to? Let me think.
Anyone. You can go with, I guess you can go with Kishore Kumar.
Kishore Kumar is my eternal favorite, so I'll go with Kishore Kumar. झुम झुमरू पकड़ घूमू बन के घुंघरू मैं ये प्यार का गीत सुनाता चला मंजिल पे मेरी नजर में दुनिया से बेखबर बीती बातों पे धूल उड़ाता चला You today ये गायो लाका पाका You today झुम 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 झुमरू पकड़ घूमू बन के घुंघरू प्यार सीने में है हर किसी के लिए बोला बाला सीधा साधा लेकिन दिल का हूँ शहजादा है ये मेरी ज़मीं ये मेरा आसमां You today ये गायो लाका माता You today Thank you.
Wow. It just feels like, home. I must say.
This is one of those songs, Sonal, which has a very important role to play in my journey. I was stepping out of a cinema hall in Mysore while I was working for Infosys, and ऑटो में ये गाना बज रहा था, and it just blew my mind. Okay? I was like, ये क्या है? And it's so incredible, and so many. I mean, not many people sing this song, so I was so inspired by listening to this song. And Kishore Kumar's genius in general. He was the music director. He was the singer. He was the one who arranged
Yeah.
the orchestra for this song. So it's incredible. I mean, what he was able to pull off. So I enjoyed this song so much that I thought I must try and sing it. So that is why when somebody asks me for a song, I often go to this one first.
Okay. So that's all for today. Thank you everyone for joining, and I guess you have enjoyed it.
Oh, it has been an absolute thrill. And I am so happy we did this, Sonal, because I have been waiting for this episode to happen. And I know you have some incredible people on the podcast this time. So for all those watching, please do continue watching Sonal's podcast and subscribe, and make sure you put in some comments also. Feel free to ask us questions. And I wish you the very best, Sonal, for your journey. I am certain it will be a wonderful one.
Thank you so much.